At the base of Mount Fuji, stretching out like a verdant yet somber shroud, lay the Aokigahara Forest. This was Japan's most ominous face, hidden behind its natural beauty, known as the Suicide Forest, or as the locals whispered, the Sea of Trees. For years I'd read stories of this forest, researched why compasses failed here, how the trees were so dense that sunlight barely pierced through, and the profound silence that enveloped it. But no text, no amount of research, could have prepared me for the crushing weight, that cold, encompassing void I felt the moment I stepped across its boundary. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves from the mountain. The warning signs at the entrance, "Please reconsider your life and think of your family and loved ones," immediately underscored that this was no ordinary place. I had only my flashlight, my thermal camera, and a sensitive voice recorder capable of capturing every whisper. The instant I stepped into the forest, all sounds from the outside world ceased. The chirping of birds, the rustle of the wind, all vanished. In their place, a silence throbbed, pulsing from the forest's own depths, a silence so profound you could hear your own heartbeat. As I ventured deeper, the trees grew so dense and intertwined that even the midday sun could only reach the ground. I detected a distinct cold spot. Even the surrounding air had noticeably dropped in temperature. At that very moment, my voice recorder picked up a deep, faint, muffled groan. It was a sound of agony, regret, or perhaps an inexpressible despair. Was this the lament of a soul troubled by yūrei, restless spirits, from Japanese folklore? As I delved further, the air grew heavier. Moss-covered tree trunks and strange, misshapen roots appeared as distorted figures in the gloom. Everything looked so similar that I had completely lost my bearings. Suddenly ahead, leaning against a tree trunk, I saw a faded, yellow rescue rope. Was this a marker used by search teams to find those who succumbed to despair, or to guide themselves back? I began to follow the rope, but it abruptly ended amidst a thicket. Where the rope ceased, a small, worn-out backpack lay next to a teddy bear with its face covered by cloth. The moment I touched the teddy bear, a metallic clinking sound echoed in the air, followed by a piercing shriek. It was as if the owners of these items were still there, their spirits trapped in the forest. Was this forest truly the Sea of Trees, a hunting ground for yōkai, demons? As I continued to walk, I detected a strange odor, very faint yet sharp, a mixture of a sweet yet repulsive scent, like decaying flowers and some kind of rusty metal. Was this smell a sign of an unseen presence within the forest? As I passed between the trees, my flashlight momentarily illuminated a very old, faint inscription carved into a tree trunk. "Think of those you leave behind." Who had written this and when? Was this a warning from the past, or was the forest itself whispering? Lost, I suddenly noticed a narrow crevice hidden within a large rock formation. This was one of the unexplored, unmapped parts of the forest. As I crawled into the crevice, it was pitch black and freezing cold inside. The cave walls were covered with strange, primitive drawings, human figures, animals, and incomprehensible symbols. In ancient Japanese beliefs, this forest contained sacred places where rituals were performed. It was even rumored that ubasute, a cruel practice of abandoning the elderly to starve, took place in this forest. In the deepest part of the cave, I found a bed of dry, darkened moss on the ground, and next to it, a small, bone-carved amulet. The moment I touched the amulet, a sudden sharp smell of smoke filled the air, followed by a high-pitched, echoing drumbeat. The sound intensified, as if a ritual had begun. My voice recorder captured numerous muffled, non-melodic whispers accompanying these drum sounds. Was this the ritual of an ancient shaman or a restless spirit abandoned here? On the dark cave walls, momentarily, short, distorted shadows appeared and vanished rapidly. Were these shadows the tormented souls trapped within the cave, unable to find peace? After leaving the cave, I felt as if I was moving deeper into the forest, into a place where no one had ever set foot. I pulled out my compass again. Its needle spun frantically, swinging in every direction. But this time was different. The compass rotated on its own as if being spun by a living entity. At that very moment, I heard numerous muffled, echoing laughs coming from within the forest. The laughter came not from a single source, but from everywhere. From within the trees, from beneath the ground. Was this the call of the forest's yōkai, demons? As the laughter intensified, the air around me thickened as if an invisible presence was enveloping me. My thermal camera detected numerous, small but distinct cold spots moving rapidly all around the forest. These spots seemed like invisible entities swirling around me. A faint whisper began in my ears. At first, it was unintelligible. Then slowly it morphed into words. Come, get lost, stay with us. The voices were beckoning me deeper into the forest, onto a path of no return. As the sun began to set, I reached a massive, ancient tree in the heart of the forest. The tree's trunk was covered in strange fissures and misshapen growths. There were grim rumors that this was one of the trees where the elderly, abandoned during the ubasute practice, breathed their last. As I approached the tree, I saw a dark, translucent liquid begin to flow from one of the fissures in its trunk. The liquid trickled down the tree's bark like tears. When I smelled it, it was salty with a faint, metallic taste. It was like bloody tears. At that moment, a deep, agonizing moan came from within the tree. The voice resembled that of an elderly woman, filled with despair and loneliness. Was this the final cry of one of the countless elderly souls abandoned to die here by ubasute? As I touched the tear-like liquid, I suddenly felt an icy coldness in my palm, and my voice recorder picked up a faint, unintelligible ancient Japanese chant, not Latin. The chant was mournful and sorrowful, like a farewell. Images began to flood my mind, a trembling, aged hand touching the tree trunk one last time, then collapsing to the ground, its eyes fixed on emptiness. At that moment, I felt the forest slowly beginning to consume me too. As darkness enveloped the forest, I came to a small clearing. This was one of the spots where items left by those who had attempted suicide were often found. Shoes, bags, even fragments of clothing. As I moved forward with my flashlight, I suddenly noticed the pages of a book turning by themselves on the ground. The book lay open, face up. There was no wind. The pages slowly turned as if by an invisible hand. At that moment, a very faint, non-melodic murmur came from the book, like a lullaby, but sorrowful and empty. My voice recorder captured this murmur along with the very light, thin sound of a rope stretching. This cave was one of those rare places that remained frozen year-round due to underground water sources. As I stepped inside, I heard a crackling sound beneath my feet, like fresh snow. At that moment, a painful, piercing woman's wail echoed from the deepest part of the cave. The wail mingled with sobs reverberating off the cave walls. My thermal camera detected a distinct vortex of cold air suspended in the furthest reaches of the cave. I felt an icy hand caress my face, and my voice recorder, along with the wailing, captured a faint, guttural whisper repeating, "Why? Why did you leave me?" Was this the last rebellion of a soul frozen to death in the cave, or the agony of a specter grieving a loved one? The breath of the forest and the consuming darkness. It was past midnight, and I had reached the densest, darkest part of the forest. The trees were so thick that my flashlight barely illuminated the path ahead. My compass was completely useless, as if the forest's magnetic anomalies were driving all electronic devices mad. I was utterly lost, and an indescribable panic swelled within me. At that moment, I felt the forest itself breathing. The air around me gently rose and fell like a colossal, invisible lung. Accompanying this breathing was a deep, low-frequency humming sound emanating from the depths. It was as if the forest was trying to pull me in. As the breathing intensified, the darkness around me grew denser. Even as my eyes tried to adjust, my flashlight's beam couldn't pierce the gloom. Out of the corner of my eye, amidst the trees, I saw dark shadows intertwined, resembling human figures. Were these shadows a coalescence of the countless souls the forest had swallowed in the past? The shadows were moving towards me as if they wanted to draw me into their embrace. As I took a step back, my foot caught on something root-like and I fell to the ground. As I fell, I heard a deep, echoing whisper in my ears coming from the entire forest as one voice. "Welcome. You are with us now." In that moment, I understood that the forest was not merely haunted. It was a living, breathing entity that consumed everything that entered it. I knew I would never get out of here. My mind was a chaotic mess, my body utterly exhausted. My compass was useless. My flashlight gave a flickering, weak light. I didn't know where I'd come from or where I was going. As the shadows pressed closer, the whispers in my ears repeated, "You'll never get out." In that moment, my will seemed to break. I had no strength left to resist. I closed my eyes, inhaling the forest's cold breath as if surrendering. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Perhaps minutes, perhaps hours. My consciousness drifted in and out until I felt that sharp, familiar wind on my face. I slowly opened my eyes. My flashlight's faint beam illuminated a familiar silhouette. The warning sign at the forest entrance stating, "Please reconsider your life." My eyes widened. How? How had I returned? All that walking, all those terrifying events. Was it all a dream? An indescribable fatigue weighed on my body, and a heavy burden on my soul. My clothes were torn, my hands covered in mud. I checked my voice recorder. Its battery was dead. I tried to access the last recordings, but the device wouldn't even turn on. My thermal camera screen was shattered. I had returned. But was I the same me? The forest's silence still echoed in my ears. The smell of decaying leaves wouldn't leave my nostrils. I leaned my back against that familiar warning sign, pulling out the last of my water with trembling hands. I drank. It tasted metallic and bitter, like blood. I looked up at the forest, and for a single instant, amidst those dense trees, I felt thousands of eyes watching me. The eyes were empty, fixed, and filled with an endless sorrow. In that moment, I understood that the forest hadn't simply let me go. It had drawn me in, twisted me, and then spat me out as a part of itself. I had left physically, perhaps, but my mind and soul remained in Aokigahara. Something had come back with me. The muffled whispers of the forest, the weight of those lost souls. The outside world was no longer the same. Every tree, every shadow would remind me of the forest. I had escaped, yes, but at what cost? That forest at the base of Mount Fuji was no longer just Japan's most haunted place. It was now a part of my mind. And from that day on, I was never truly alone. Because Aokigahara followed me like a shadow, entering my dreams every night, repeating that final whisper, "I let you go." But I never left.